Hello, I'm Mrs. Carraz. This is Chapter 1, Roots of the American People, and this is Section 2, Cultures of North America. So we looked in the last section at the development of civilizations, and as certain civilizations developed, distinct cultures or ways of life became apparent. Here are just a few of the earliest culture groups in the Americas. Mound builders built large piles of earth, some as burial places, some as foundations for buildings. The mound builders in Mississippi built the first cities in North America. The Anasazi built large cliff dwellings, probably as defense against attacks from other culture groups. They were skilled in making baskets, pottery, and jewelry. They were also big traders. The Anasazi mysteriously abandoned their cliff dwellings by the year 1300. The Hohokam were highly skilled farmers who dug irrigation canals to water their crops. They often traded for seashells, which they used to make jewelry and religious objects. So with all of these three different culture groups, right, these are just three of many, we're seeing them using their skills and abilities to do different things. So now, it's hard to generalize about the different culture groups in North America at the time, but I'm going to go through in the next few slides some overarching information that generally applies to all culture groups. So let me step back. Native Americans were divided among different culture areas, or regions where groups of people share similar ways of life. And why were things similar in these certain areas but different across the country as a whole? Well, the climate, the natural resources, and the geography of a place influence the type of culture area that developed there, right? If you live in Florida versus if you live in Alaska, you're going to have a different way of life and probably different habits. So, like I said, I'm going to overview some general things that apply to most culture groups, but you're going to become familiar with one specific culture area from this list here. We'll get there in class, don't worry. Right now we're going to look at what's shared among all culture groups, or most. So when it came to meeting their basic needs, survival or survival-like things, women collected roots, wild seeds, nuts, acorns, and berries. Men hunted for game, aka animals, and they fished. Farming was still big. It allowed people to plant and harvest crops that were suited to the climate of their region. So what you might grow in one area might be different than what you would grow in another, but overall, people were farming. Pointed sticks, bones, and shells were used as tools for farming. Trade became a common activity at this time thanks to the surplus that many culture groups had. Shells, flint, copper, and salt were popular trade items. Some cultures use seashells or beads as currency. When I say currency, I mean money, of course. And then we come down to shared beliefs, right? So the last slide we had what they were doing. Here's kind of what Native American culture groups are thinking around this time. So many Native Americans felt a close connection to the natural world. They believed that spirits dwelled in nature and influenced their daily lives. Many cultures had traditions designed to celebrate nature, although different culture groups would have different traditions to that end. So, for example, Native Americans in the Southeast held the green corn ceremony in late summer. This was a form of spiritual and natural renewal at the end of the growing season. Pueblo Indians worshiped spirits known as Kachinas. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. They carved Kachina dolls to help teach their children about these spirits. And in general, Native Americans had a strong oral tradition. They memorized histories, stories, and legends, and repeated them to the rest of their tribes. That wraps us up on the overview of culture groups. We'll take a look at some more specific cultural practices tomorrow in class.